Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator, actively alienating everyone, in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. This is Let's Play Higurashi. Chapter 2, Watanagashi. Watanagashi can mean two things. It can mean cotton drifting festival, but it can also mean gut spilling festival. It's a big difference. Watanagashi, so gut spilling? I didn't think saying that could ever feel so nauseating. Yes, it's as you imagine, Mabura-kun. Right now, the Watanagashi Festival might just be a somewhat early summer festival occurring every June, but it used to be very different. It used to be a ghastly cannibalistic feast held on the night that villagers had collected their unfortunate dinner. That can't be true. I had no reason to say that. But I couldn't help it. I'm going to open this can of Pringles. Mabura-kun, you said the watanagashi is a ritual about purifying futons, right? What do you think the futons filled with cotton with wata represent? Futons are futons. They're beds. They're things for sleeping in. What else could they possibly represent? I was rattling on, desperately attempting to deny the horrible festival that Takano-san was describing. Deep down, however, I found myself understanding all too well what she meant. Futons stuffed with cotton. The cotton represented entrails in both pronunciation and meaning. Then the entrail futons would have to be humans. Why don't you think back to the offertory dance Rika-chan performed? Do you know what she was doing up there? No, I don't. I didn't even watch the whole thing anyway. Shh. Kei-chan, you're getting too worked up. Shion grabbed one of my ears, reminding me that this wasn't somewhere I should raise my voice. Even so, I still can't suppress the agitation I feel. Rika-chan was carrying a festival hoe. You've probably realized already, but that's not a hoe for plowing fields. That's a tool for dissecting human bodies. I didn't see the dance all the way through, so I don't know what kind of performance Rika-chan was putting on after I had left. I know you said I could watch her do the dance in the future festivals, but at least this would have been the one I could have seen it and not know any of this stuff. And I could be like, oh, cool, Rika-chan's doing a little dance. Good for you, Rika-chan. And then, now I can't do that. Because now I'll be thinking about this every time. When I told this to Takano-san, she calmly explained Rika-chan's dance to me. To summarize what she said after what I'd seen, Rika-chan would pierce the futons with that hoe, cut them open, and pull out the cotton inside. She cut the cotton out one bit at a time and set it afloat. That's the kind of ritual it was. Broadly speaking, it was quite the bombastic ceremony where they'd rip out the guts and throw them into the basin. And then the ritual was over. It's thought that afterward the villagers, each a different role, dismantled the flesh piece by piece and feasted upon it. Hee. At Takano-san's strangely happy giggle, I felt for some reason violent displeasure. Rika-chan, every day, during our lunch break, she'd take a rice-pounding mallet into the schoolyard. And she'd work so hard sweating bullets to practice for the offertory dance she'd done today. All that effort, all that work. Takano-san disgraced it, even though she worked so hard to practice for today. Takano-san, I think you should choose your words more carefully. Kei-chan's pretty naive, so please don't tease him so much. A moment before I opened my mouth to express how angry I was, Shion stopped me. Shion must have been fully aware of how that story made me feel. I'm sorry. I thought you'd like a story with a bit of shock value since you're a boy. Takano-san spoke without a hint of malice, as she smiled gracefully. After hearing all that, did you figure out what kind of stuff is in this storehouse, Kei-chan? See? Look, Shion pointed out one of the walls vaguely illuminated by the lantern's light. There was. Mere moments ago they hadn't held my interest. They were just boring-looking tools lined up on the shelves. All those uninteresting tools I didn't understand how to use. They all suddenly took on a new meaning, and I couldn't help but let out a groan. At first they had looked like carpentry tools, like chisels and planes. However, when I thought back, I had seen pictures of these sorts of tools before. Yeah, they came up in a Japanese history textbook. Yes, on the page introducing the Katai Shinso, or the new text on anatomy. These sorts of things, they're printed realistically in literature of Germany, capital of the medical world. These aren't carpentry tools. These strangely shaped tools, they're for dissection. Everyone knows that in the Edo period, they would dissect the corpses of those who had been put to death in order to gain knowledge about Western medical techniques. Illustrations of the dissection tools they used at the time came up in textbook supplements. The things hung on the wall all looked exactly the same as those. If you want a scarier way of looking at it, think of them as cooking utensils. Hee. Takano-san, holding the lantern, the only light source in the room, led us along the wall. She had the only light, so I had to walk after her whether I liked it or not. Look. Takano-san illuminated a coiled chain which left a bigger impression than the other things we saw. The chain in itself was nothing unusual, but further along it were metal fetters that were like hinges, clearly meant for binding people. Kei-chan? Look at that! Shion tapped me on the shoulder and pointed to a restraining table that was clearly shaped like a person. My spine froze. My blood felt like it was turning into a sherbet as it crawled up my back. On each of the joints there were things like chains and iron balls attached. It was like the table was searching for its next sacrifice, ready to spread their arms wide and close them in. Here's a question: how recent does the blood look? It's probably a chopping block. I think you'd strap the sacrifice down and prepare them for eating. The words chopping block sent a jolt through my body. When I looked more closely, there were many dark slices carved into it as though from a knife or a saw. They were the most clear-cut signs of usage you could ask for. It proved these tools weren't just for show. They were used for their original purpose. If someone was strapped tightly on this table, they probably wouldn't be able to move even a muscle. Their guts would be defenseless. You'd take one of those eerie-looking knives lined up over there and stab them with it, and then you'd slice open their belly and dissect them. I had heard the stories, but this is incredible. Before coming in here, Shion had mentioned she had a good guess at what was inside, but it seems to have exceeded her imagination. There's still more. How about it? More fascinating than a wax museum, isn't it? Takano-san had this happy expression, like she was visiting a toy store for the first time. I'm gonna eat some more Pringles. These Pringles are Texas barbecue brisket flavored. I don't get it. This Mio Takano person has nerves of steel. Are these bizarre, grotesque objects that fascinating for her? I, for one, was not enjoying myself. I'll be frank, this was all too weird for me. Still, there was something even more horrifying than all this. That would be none other than Takano-san herself. Takano-san was holding the lantern, giving off such a thin beam of light. If she suddenly turned it off, then what would I do? The next moment, everything went totally dark. Went totally dark. That's why I was scared. Takano-san had the only light, and anyway, I was scared. At some point, Shion had started holding onto my shirt sleeve. It was a little annoying to walk around like that, but I didn't shake her off. The minor sensation allowed me to feel the presence of an ally here and now. Before we had even walked halfway through the storehouse, there I felt my skin change completely. These cruel tools lined up, all crammed together in this place. Some were horrible ones, made to take away sacrifices' freedom, and some were tools to efficiently disassemble and prepare the bodies for consumption. Those were just the things I understood. There were plenty of other strange-looking objects that I couldn't even guess the purpose of. Now that I was here, I didn't have the slightest desire to hear the details. What about what sort of terrifying reasons they were meant to be used for? At the very least, they were all completely different from the sort of clean, simple cleaning function of a katana. Tools to kill people were obviously constructed in such a way that they could kill people. If that was the goal, then the person who used them would obviously end up dead. The kinds of tools here, however, were different. The tools that were here were for cutting people, for crushing them, for boiling them and cooking them, and for grinding them. They were tools of torture. They weren't meant to kill people. People dying was just an incidental result. Actually, they might not even kill them. If the sacrifices could die such a horrifying ritual process, that would be nice, but they don't even die in the end. They remain in a state of hellish pain. Perhaps they were only being allowed to live. Only now in this moment did I fully realize just how terrifying and fearsome that difference was. People, you see, most of these wouldn't kill them if used properly. Takano-san, as if reading my mind, displayed a shocking smile. Burning at the stake, the famous method of execution, for witches will kill the person immediately. Usually a person would die of suffocation from that too, instead of the burning. When the body suffers extreme burns on the skin, the decomposition of the skin's chemical makeup produces poison-like symptoms and causes immense shock to the victim, but usually they'll die of suffocation before even that. Though I suppose it's still very cruel compared to the guillotine. You have to wait far longer for that to happen. She described such horrors in a strangely medical way. Shion immediately answered the question I had. Takano-san is a nurse. There is a saying that nothing can scare a doctor. I guess it's true. Oh, and also, there was a method for execution in ancient Rome where they would grill the person. I mean, there was the bull, but I don't think, just like a barbecue. They would cover the person in wire netting. Okay, this is different. And slowly cook them over a charcoal fire. To think the memories of when I went to a day camp with my family would come rushing back now of all times so vividly. That's what it's like. Apparently they wouldn't die too easily for some reason. According to one source, even if they roasted one side of the person to a crisp for an entire night, they would still be conscious and able to speak fluently. That's insane. You'd grill someone the whole day and they'd still be conscious. It's said that ancient Rome, famous for executions, thought of plenty of ways to execute someone, while having their victims stay alive as long as possible. Among them, there was one method where they would open the gut and pull out the intestines like sausages, and pull them up with a winch, and pull them out in public display. There was a movie called The Cell. It's like the 90s. Shion was behind me, clinging to me. Not just because she was scared. She was protecting her stomach. You would think someone with their intestines pulled out would die instantly, right? Actually, as long as you do it tenderly and thoroughly, it's apparently possible to pull them all out while the person is still conscious. I felt a sick feeling in my stomach. It was like my organs were coiling up just from Takano-san's stare. though pulling them out with a winch was a rather exaggerated method. In a more barbaric way, they might just slice open the gut and cut the intestines out and throw them everywhere. It's quite imaginable that they did dreadful things like that too, isn't it? However, those being put to death are conscious. It must be far more terrifying than painful. She spoke with pleasure, as if she had come here on a sightseeing trip. I heard Shion gulping multiple times near my ears. Perhaps Hinamizawa, rather than Onikafushi village, did something like that for the Watanagashi festival. Listen, if you try hard, can't you hear it? I wanted nothing more than to not hear anything at all. So why only at a time like this did I begin to hear things I shouldn't be able to? Takano-san, having realized she'd scared Shion nigh enough at this point, smiled soothingly. Then she turned on her heel, raised the lantern, and began to walk again. If Takano-san left us here, we'd get even further away from the light. She and I, no matter how scared we were forced to follow Takano-san along on our field trip through the ritual storehouse. I suppose we've seen a bit of everything, see? This place is interesting, isn't it? She says, raising the lantern high in the center of the storehouse. The dim lighting didn't change, but for some reason it felt like I was able to see all those horrible tools at once. Kei-chan? Look up. Shion stammered while grabbing the nape of my neck. I couldn't tell because it was so dark, but there were a lot more tools hanging from the ceiling as well. They all looked like they were made of iron bars, but then I figured it out. Cages. For cages, they were very small. Cramped cages just for one. Like a casket. You got locked up in there? No, you wouldn't get locked up inside. It was another tool meant for restraining people, where the iron bars would squeeze you tightly. All the tiny, so many big and large things of all shapes were hanging down. Takano-san's mention of execution by grilling crosses my mind. We weren't just surrounded on all sides with these terrifying instruments, things crowding the ceiling, or even hanging over our heads. There are many of these sorts of bird cages among European torture devices. I'm surprised to see them in Japan as well. Kei-chan, is there something in there? A person? A mummy? But where? Shion desperately pointed to one of the many human-sized bird cages hanging from the ceiling, but I couldn't tell which one she meant. Being that dark, there wasn't any way you could tell if something was there in the first place. I don't see anything. You sure you're not seeing things? Shion didn't seem convinced, but without a means to confirm for ourselves, we couldn't do much but wonder. Mabar-kun, after seeing this, have you come to believe in all of it? The countless terrible rituals passed down in Hinamizawa. It's got nothing to do with believing in them. Now that I've been shown the real thing like this, there's no possible way to deny it. Even the nations of Europe, of all their beautiful landscapes and legends, were like a maelstrom during the terrible witch hunts in the Dark Ages. It's well known that era gave birth to countless gruesome forms of torture and execution. Japan was the same way. Didn't it have its own era of hellscape-like torturous feasts? Because of religious suppression and things of that nature? Hinamizawa itself had such a period. It had that much history behind it, even in Europe, land of the witch hunts. That was all far in the past, no more than a series of historical events, and in this age nothing that abnormal would ever happen. That must apply to Hinamizawa as well. Just as Europe had its dark ages, Hinamizawa had one too. That's how this should be taken. Even if these things all really happened in Hinamizawa, they're all long past. They don't have anything to do with the people living in Hinamizawa right now. Mabar-kun, you really do like this village. It didn't sound like she was making fun of me. Takano-san gave me a light smile. Takano-san, you're researching whether those customs survived into the present. You are right. Shion suggested something that made my heart leap into my throat. Are you telling me that all these horrible things are still going on even today? What I'm about to tell you is a secret, all right? I told you, Shion-chan, because you're an understanding person, but the other villagers don't want to hear it. If things go awry, I could be ganged up on and punished. Shion flashed a devilish smile, as if reveling in the immorality of it. Mabura-kun, you keep it a secret too, okay? If this gets out, I could suffer Orishira-sama's curse, or be made into a sacrifice. If it's the curse, then I wonder, what kind of death will it be this year? If it's the sacrifice, then will I be thrown into Ongufushi swamp while still alive? It is tonight, you know, the night of Oyashira-sama's curse, Takano said, bringing his face right up close to ours, as if to say that if she had the choice, she'd rather suffer the curse. That was what she seemed to be implying. Takano-san took a fairly worn notebook out of her paper bag, then began to flip through its pages. There were all sorts of references and newspaper clippings attached to them, and it had all manner of things written inside. The letters were very small and bunched together, so I couldn't tell at a glance what it was about. Remember, this story takes place in the 80s. What I'd really like to do is search through the National Library for newspapers from the era, but here it is. A photocopy of a page from some book was slid into the notebook, and it too was written in small, tight lettering. Like the other pages, I could tell what it was about just by glancing at it. This is a story that actually happened. It was around the end of the Meiji era. You know, there's a chocolate bar called a Meiji bar. It's pretty good. They discovered an unknown mangled corpse, the victim of a murder in Onogufushi village. An old newspaper clipping attached to the page spoke of something. There was no mere rumor or fairy tale. We don't have the most police documents from that time anymore. So it's all based on oral traditions and memories. See, it's not very clear, but it looks like a cut-off of a newspaper from the Meiji era. Never before has there been a corpse treated with such cruelty and inhumanity. Could it be the work of a demon? Being a copy of a copy, it was very hard to make out, but it was more than enough to make me feel strangely tense. Near the end of the Meiji era, an old Onogufushi village, a mangled corpse was discovered. The identity of the corpse was unknown. It wasn't even in a state where it could be identified in the first place. It was missing a head, and each limb was separated from the body. Skin had been peeled off the entire body, and there were markings that implied terrible torture in every place imaginable. Not only that, but the belly had been cut open by a sharp knife, with the entrails completely dragged out. The police immediately began an investigation, but since they couldn't even determine the identity of the victim, much less the criminal, finding answers was extremely difficult. Do you understand what it must have been like? I couldn't imagine such a strange sight, even if I tried. This was the first time I was ever thankful for my lack of imagination. The victim was skinned while still alive, underwent all kinds of torture, and was killed brutally. The author here also thinks that even after death the remains were divided and dissected even further, the epitome of inhumanity. I am of the opinion that the entire process was performed while the person was still alive, though. What do you think, Mabura-kun? She spoke in a way intended to make me imagine even more vicious things. As my brain was already far over capacity, however, there was no way I could imagine anything more brutal. Then, when I broke my gaze from Takano-san's, those strangely shaped weird tools all around us. I wonder if you could faithfully reproduce the mutilated corpse discovered at the end of the Meiji era with the tools found in this place. I want to deny it. I don't want to admit that something so terrible could have happened at all. Even so, they were so strange, so terrifying, these tools, and as if they had seen through my attempt to escape from them, they did nothing but ridicule me silently. So, that creepy incident, what was it in the end? The author says that regarding Onagafushi Village's dreadful customs, they've survived in the recent post-Meiji days, and that perhaps they lasted until around the beginning of the Showa period. This corpse, which at a glance had been brutally killed after a period of torture. In actuality, however, it was the pitiful sacrificial remains of the man-eater's terrifying feast. The corpse was just leftovers. It was so fantastic, so strange, that it didn't feel real. Was this an extension of the legends too? It happened in the Meiji era, which is just too recent to be called a legend. Also, there's a newspaper clipping right here suggesting it. Oh, okay, but even if it really happened, it was a long time ago, right? I mean, the Meiji era ended 100 years ago. That's all? Only 100 years ago? Besides, it kept happening even after the beginning of the Showa period, like with the uproar around the post-war canned flesh incident. Oh, I apologize, that story was taboo, wasn't it? Takano-san immediately stopped talking as if worried about Shion. Shion briefly looked somewhat angry. But that expression soon disappeared, huh? Takano-san, what did you just say? Canned flesh? Just then there was a huge, creaking noise. Everyone looked around to look. It was Tomotaki-san who had opened the door slightly. Ah ha ha, did I startle you? Oh, Jiro-san. Could you not resist seeing inside? This is a splendid treasure trove of torture devices. I'll pass on that. I'm bad with this sort of thing by nature. Takano-san held her stomach and had to muffle her laughter as if she wanted to make a comment about his masculinity. In any case, the dance and ceremony over and everyone's going down to the stream. The festival will be over within minutes. Oh, that's not good. Mabura-kun is just such a good listener that I couldn't help telling stories. I'd rather you not mention me in a place like this. Jiro-san, could you wait out front? I want to take a few pictures. There are actually a lot of tools I'd like to bring home, but we obviously can't do that. Takano-san took out the camera for a paper bag and began to snap photographs. She looked like she was having fun, like she was on a scavenger hunt. Keiichi-kun, are you leaving too? I've seen enough. Shion, you're good too, right? Let's get out of here. I want some fresh air. I agree. Let's leave. I did a bit of hesitation at leaving Takano-san by herself in this darkness. When I thought about it, though, I realized that whatever kinds of evil spirits and ghosts lurked in the darkness, none of them could hold a candle to how scary she was. Even if a phantasm were to appear, she'd be overjoyed and flash her camera at it. It seemed like Shion shared my somewhat rude mental images. We exchanged glances and smiled painfully. We left Takano-san, there bathed in her strobe of camera flashes, and decided to go leave the ritual storehouse. Everyone at the festival seemed to have gotten to the stream, so their voices were very distant. The voices of the bugs, on the other hand, were clear. The cicadas were very loud as the higurashi were crying, leading an empty feeling of isolation to the place. How was it? Interesting? Tomotaki-san gave us a somewhat mischievous grin. He should have been able to tell by looking at how pale our faces were. I should have kept watch outside with you, Tomotaki-san. Ah ha ha. Laughed so delightfully that it wiped away our dark feelings. How did you fare, Shion-chan? Were you scared? I was prepared for it, so I wasn't too afraid, but seeing the real thing was powerful. Shion spoke like she wasn't scared at all. She really had been quite afraid. But seeing as how I was in much worse state than her, I didn't have much room to talk. As Tomotaki-san grinned candidly, my mind exhausted and locked up by nervousness began to calm itself. Was Takano-san an adult about this little expedition? You know, she seems like a child sometimes. I was worried she'd be way too excited. Both she and I laughed and left that as our answer. Hopefully she was looking at things. I'm worried she'll sneak something out of there, or mess with a ritual emblem too much and break it or something. Right, that's quite possible. She is alone in there right now. She might pilfer something small and easily concealed, hiding it in her pocket. Ah, yeah, I can see that. Shion said that, what I was thinking. You're sure she didn't break anything? I could clearly hear some noises, like someone jumping up and down. I was getting pretty nervous. I'm sorry, I ran out of the film. Shiro-san, if you have any more, could I use some? Takano-san slowly appeared while we were talking about her, taking everyone by surprise. Tomotaki-san smoothly grinned, and responded as if nothing had happened. He's pretty But sure. Ha ha ha, I'm all out of spare film. Sorry about that. Jeez, you won't win any Pulitzer prizes by not stocking up enough film for any occasion, you know? I suppose that's it then. Tomotaki-san scratched his head apologetically. Without film, we're done here. Takano-san seemed to have given up because of that too. We checked carefully to make sure we had left everything inside, then closed the door and turned the heavy padlock. We left back inside. Takano-san, you didn't seek anything out, right? How rude. I'm trying not to be that childish. Kerchlack. Tomotaki-san set the padlock back to the way it was before. From a cursory glance, it didn't look like the thieves had snuck in at all. Okay, let's get over by the stream and ourselves. If we don't at least set some cotton afloat, there won't be any point in coming to the festival. Tomotaki-san brightly urging us all along, setting cotton afloat down the stream. I shook my head a few times, driving away my dismal thoughts as to the double meaning. Takano-san, looking a little let down, kept turning back to glance at the ritual storehouse. Let's just leave it at that, alright? You saw enough to sate your curiosity, didn't you? Oh, not at all. Everything I found out only renewed my interests. All those stories and legends suddenly hold water. After day, I'm going to have to change the way I look at all things. At all this. Wow, she's truly indomitable. Her curiosity really is something else. Still interested in all this, through and through. We descended the stone stairs, and all the people crowding the stream came into view. Near the bottom of the stairs we could clearly see people receiving cotton that had been cut out for them, then wishing upon the cotton, and setting it afloat down the stream. The festival was already over. Damn, I missed my chance to photograph the best parts of watanagashi. Oh, but it's not too late. I'm going to go and set some afloat. Perhaps you could take pictures of me. Takano-san, with an impish expression, brought her head to Tomotaki-san's shoulder. Despite his age, he looked embarrassed. I felt an honest respect for Tomotaki-san, man to man, for dating such a handful of a woman. Goodbye, then, Mabara-kun, Shion-chan. We're going down to the stream. Would you like to come with us? No, I couldn't get in your way. Please take your time. Shion waved her hand to them, with an expression just as impish as Takano-san's. Tomotaki-san, on his part, seemed to want us to come. But whatever. Shion gave a big stretch and sat down on the stone steps. Eh? I'm pretty worn out. Same here. I'm exhausted too. Kei-chan, this is your first watanagashi, isn't it? I mean, if you don't count time travel. You go on, don't mind me. I'm tired, so I'd like to stay away from the crowd. Yeah, if we were to go now, we'd barely slip into the end of the cotton drifting ceremony. My sister and your other friends might be looking for you, too. Go on. Oh, yeah, right. They've been by themselves ever since we got separated. I'd feel bad if they were looking for me. Then Shion suddenly got a playful look on her face, and then put her index finger to her lips, as if telling me to keep this a secret. My sister's the type that gets really jealous. If she knew I was hogging you this whole time, she'd never let me hear the end of it, so keep tonight's a secret, okay? Keep tonight a secret. Don't say things that are so embarrassing. Not only because of that, either. Considering what we're doing tonight, we really need to keep it a secret. Oyashiro-san's curse might happen tonight, and we four will be prime candidates. The loosening threads of tension became taut again. Shion, however, burst out laughing. All right, I'm going to get out of here before I run into my sister. I really am tired, so I don't have the endurance to put up with her anyway. I can't tell if you get along with her or not. We get along, though as she said, her vague expression explained that there are a lot of oddities in the relationship between twins. I'm an only child, so I don't really get it. Make sure you get along with her, okay? Right, thank you kindly for your meddling. Okay, I'm gonna go. You should hurry up if you want to make it, Kei-chan. Watanagashi is really about to end. Shion stood up and brushed the dust off her backside. After watching her do so, I returned my eyes to the final ceremony of the Watanagashi festival down below me. Seriously, though, what was that sound anyway? It was kind of unpleasant and creepy. Huh? What sound? The sound. You know, the banging noise. It was really loud, wasn't it? I was giving her a blank expression. I was giving her a blank, so Shion stared hard at me. I stared hard at her too. Sorry, Shion. Could you give me the short version? What was making noise? Wait, Kei-chan? It didn't bother you? When all's said and done, it was like we were speaking two different languages. Shion? Explain it to me without jokes from the beginning, will you? What's this about a noise? Kei-chan, you quit joking around too. I didn't hear anything. Really, honestly, it didn't bother you. Neither of us was giving any ground, and both of us were staring at the other in disbelief. We were answering questions with more questions, with no sign of an actual conversation in sight. Baffled, I held in the urge to shout at her, and asked politely one more time. I'm going to ask one more time, okay? I'll ask the questions. Shion nodded silently. Okay, here goes. You said there was a sound. What are you talking about? The banging sound. It was like a kid was jumping up and down on the floorboards somewhere far away. It really didn't bother you? There was nothing to be bothered by. When did you hear this? I never heard anything. Wait, Kei-chan, are you serious? Yeah, I heard nothing. Shion, as if she didn't understand my plain and simple answer, pressed me further, her expression serious. I have no clue what she's talking about. But if it was as Shion acting like this, whatever it was, it gave me the creeps and sent a chill down my spine. It was while we were looking around the inside of the ritual storehouse of Takano-san, about the time she started her stories, I think it was. Little by little, louder and louder, off and on. She heard a banging sound like a child jumping on distant floorboards. That can't be true. Don't start trying to scare me after all that. I didn't hear anything at all. In fact, I was so utterly silent there that my own heartbeat was almost deafening. Please don't try to scare me either, Kei-chan. It was like something was making noise in time with Takano-san's scary story, and I was totally creeped out the whole time. The chill rose from my spine to the back of my head. My blood turned cold as it crawled up my body. When it reached my head, my mind froze over. You and Takano-san weren't paying any attention to it at all, so I pretended not to hear it either, but you heard it, right? It happened a bunch of times, and it was really loud. Shion's eyes were begging me to tell her I heard it. I had no doubt, however, that my own eyes suggested something entirely different. A you've got to be kidding me look. In that storehouse, we were surrounded by brutal ritual tools that looked like they were from another planet, listening to terrifying old stories. The whole time Shion had been hearing a sound that we couldn't hear but by herself. Shouldn't that make Shion, who heard it, tremble, or should it make me, who didn't hear it, tremble? I didn't know the answer at the time. For now, Shion seemed to have made the decision before I did. What are you laughing about? I really got you, Kei-chan. I was sitting the whole time. Okay, you're trying to pretend you didn't hear it. What? Shion laughed, saying how easily scared I was, and clapped me on the back. Her smile seemed somehow artificial, That actually made me feel worse. Then after leaving me with 2 or 3 generic diplomatic goodbye phrases, she left almost like she was running away. All I could do was look after her, my mouth agape. At the end of the day, I didn't have a clue what was going on. Shion laughed it off and said she had been lying, but she couldn't possibly have been lying. Of course not. And now that I think back, Tomotaki-san said the same thing, didn't he? I could clearly hear some noises, like someone jumping up and down. I was getting pretty nervous. Tomotaki-san, the most neutral party present at the time, had said he'd heard something. Then, that noise, it was real? The banging sounds? The sounds as though a child was jumping up and down on some kind of floorboards far away, or Yoshiro-sama's curse, which happens every year, might happen again tonight. The most plausible victim candidates were Takano-san, Tomotaki-san, Shion, and me. The bustling of the people sounded further away than I would have liked, and the sounds of insects sounded far too close for comfort. I'm near so much human warmth, and yet I can't ever go back there again. That was the ominous idea that sprouted in my mind. Then all of a sudden I was pounced on from behind, causing my heart to lurch. Keiichi, we found you!